Shimelle Laine, and I'm here with a new edition of Sketch to Scrapbook page. And today's sketch is a really simple and quick page that you can put together in a flash. So I have two landscape 4x6 photos, and then I'm going to be layering a few different papers and some circular embellishments in the middle. And today's supplies, I'm using my March product picks for the Best of Both Worlds kit, and I've added in just some black cardstock. So I'm starting with this background sheet, which is by Maggie Holmes for crepe paper. The pink ink splatters are already in the design. I haven't added that. So the other side looks like this, which is also gorgeous, but I wanted to use this black and white pattern. And then the next largest element of the page is this square in the middle that's then bordered by another square. So that's where the black cardstock has come in. I've cut a square that's 9.5 inches square from this pink camera print from the new Amy Tangerine Yes Please, and then just cut a slightly larger box to be the matte and just the black on the black and white pattern, and there's some black and white in my photos with the stripes and the polka dots, and I just liked the sharpness of that look. But I do want to soften my edges a little bit, so I'm going to be inking the edges of my papers with black ink today, just to pick up on this black and white theme rather than adding brown, which would be more antiqued. There's already some distressing to the Maggie Holmes papers that you can see here around the edge. The Amy Tangerine papers, the only kind of distressing is in white, where you just get a little bit of a mottled effect. It's not too obvious. Just center this in the middle of that box, and then the same thing, center this larger box then in the middle of the whole layout. And the cameras face every direction, so there's not one particular way that this pattern needs to go. Okay, then the next large element here is this tall box, and this is 4x12, which is a good ratio to use with two 4x6 photos, because this block of photos is going to take up the same amount of space as this vertical block. So it's basically an adaptation on the idea of an equal cross, kind of like a red cross design, but taking the photos down off the center point, but the two elements are the same size. Hope that makes some sense. So for that vertical box, I'm going to use this music note pattern paper, which is also from the Maggie Holmes collection, and just add the black ink to that. Again, this one has some brown distressing already, and those blue ink dots are a part of the paper design. Now you can get a look at the pink doily print on the other side. I've saved the rest of that sheet so that I can use the pink doily paper on another layout. I think that's pretty central. And then it's time to add my photos. So this is going really quickly. So I have two 4x6 landscape photos, and then I just want to balance them so that they go all the way across the page. And I was just looking as to which direction would be best, because I'm going to put some circular embellishments right over the spot where the two photos meet in the middle. And for that, I have 3 stickers from the Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm sticker book. And if you have this, you may have noticed that in this sticker book they've perforated the sticker sheet so that you can just tear these apart and move them around without removing the backing, and that way you can see where things are going to be placed. So in this case, then I can just pop these 3 stickers in the middle and try it in both directions, which photo in which place, and I can see that way which one's going to cover up too much of the design or which one is a better balance. I think this way will be better because there's a lot more empty space on this side of the photo. And in this photo, the faces are a little bit further to the side. Not a lot in it, but a little bit. So I think, yeah, I won't cover up anyone's face. Just a little bit of shoulder, and I think that's okay. So I'm going to go in that arrangement. just line this up with the edge of the page and then bring in the other side to match. Adding these with pop dots on the back just to give a little bit more dimension and not have the stickers stuck flat to the photographs. And with 3 elements like this, I always do the outside 2 first because there's something to judge the spacing by, and then when those 2 are in place, I can take the middle one and it's easier to line it up so that it is central. So then I have my 3 embellishments. So the rest of my sketch then takes my title and my journaling, and I may need to make a little bit of adjustment to that because I've got quite a busy pattern paper here, but I can definitely do my title straight onto this, and then I'll see how I go with the writing. For my title, I wanted to use a combination of these letter stamps and the pink thickers, and I know with the kit this month that I suggested just choosing which set of thickers are best for you. I am going to show a few different options on different layouts this month so that no matter which one you picked, you'll still have some sort of example to see to see the whole design and the different options. So I'm just going to set up my word on the block and stamp it onto a spare piece of paper to see if I like the spacing and everything like that. It's a little bit quicker than doing word by word, but letter by letter. For the stamping part of the title, I've spelt out my title on the block, and then just on some scrap paper wanted to give this a try so I could see the different colorings I would get if I just continued to stamp. So I inked it up with this Picked Raspberry Distress ink, and then stamped. This is the first version where it's all completely inked, and then I just kept stamping without re-inking so that I get this faded effect. And what I want to use on my layout is the bottom 3 and not this big bold really inked one. So I'll just ink it up once again and stamp this first one on the scrap paper and then move to the layout to do this 3 stamped set in the background here because I want to put my thickers on top of it and have this kind of fade into the background. So just ink it up with this Distress ink. And I'll stamp once on the scrap paper and then 3 times in a row on the layout, just moving straight down in a row. And then I have that faded effect, and I can put my thickers right over the top and it'll still be legible. For the rest of the title, I toyed with the idea of making this thicker part really long to go all the way across the pink box. And in the end, I think that sticking with this column in the middle ends up a lot more pleasing in balance because it kind of looks like the long line is hovering a little bit too much, and I couldn't kind of visualize something that would go in between and make that balance. So I stayed more true to the sketch itself. Even though I've got quite a long title, it's still in this central box, and I've just taken up more of the room that's allocated to the writing and made it all those large letters for the title. I want to go ahead and add some small letter stickers at the bottom to balance this out. So I'm going to use the Dear Lizzie Neapolitan small stickers from the kit and just spell out a little bit here down at the bottom. And then that's going to give me a little room for handwriting here and here. And I think I'm going to have enough room there to say what I wanted to go along with these photos. In adding the green letter stickers at the bottom of the page, I realized I wanted to add the date and thought I could balance it by adding those same green stickers at the top of the page. So instead of putting the date right at the bottom, I've put it up here at the top, and thought to make that stand out, I would add a little bit of the pink tape, but I've just used half the design. So it's just an angled line rather than a chevron. And then repeated that at the bottom, which does give me somewhere I need to add a little little something because here the letter stickers overlap the tape and here there's a gap in between. So I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. And then I added my writing in between to fill these two spaces. And I'm almost done, but I just wanted to add a little bit of something here, and I wanted to make sure that my colors are working with me here because it's quite a minimal page design, but in cases like that where there are not a lot of elements on the page, it's really helpful to have all the colors work together. So obviously there's a lot of pink. The black and white is repeating from my top in the photographs, but then there's also this green color here, greenish blue, that repeats this same tone that's in the music note pattern paper in those little ink droplets. And then the pink turns up again here in the stickers. But what doesn't repeat is this yellow. So I'd really like to add a little bit of something yellow to this space at the bottom just to balance that out. Now I know that some of you will then think, that means there's 2 places with yellow and it would be nice if there were 3. And that's true, and I could have thought that through and maybe put a little bit of yellow up here behind the 2012, but I'm okay with there just being 2. There's actually a tiny little bit of yellow in this sticker, and I'm not overly worried about it, but I would like to bring it into the bottom of the page design. Now I didn't want to cut into a whole another sheet from the kit to create just one tiny little piece, so I just grabbed a yellow scrap paper. This is also from that same Amy Tangerine collection, and I'm going to use the Love stamp from the Amy Tangerine stamp set. And I know that this is text printed, but because this stamp is a block where the letters are in the reverse, I'm not stamping the letters, I'm stamping the letters, the space around the letters, and the letters don't have any ink. So if I stamp this in black, which I've used in other places on the page, that will bring that darker tone down here to the bottom, and it will still be legible on top of the yellow pattern paper. Because this design is the negative rather than just stamping the letters, it's really important to get a really crisp, clear stamp, otherwise it is hard to read lettering that way. So I tried on my separate piece of paper several different ink pads to see what would give me the cleanest stamp, and it was the StazOn that gave me a really crisp image. And even though StazOn is often used for shiny surfaces rather than things like plain paper that take ink very easily, it is often the case that something with a negative design works really well with StazOn just because it has a really crisp look to the stamp design. So just add this little bit to the bottom of the page and have a look here. I think this will be best with some pop dots. And it might even be a good place to just put a tiny little bit of small embellishment like some thread. So I think I'll just find a little bit of baker's twine that will go behind here, or some colored thread, and that will be my last little finishing touch. It turns out I spoke just a little too soon about not needing to add yellow at the top, because in finding some thread to add to the bottom, I decided it would be best if I repeated that at the top. So I've added just a little bit of yellow thread underneath the stickers at the top, and then at the bottom as well, and I'm going to pop that stamped piece over the top of that. And I'm just using normal thin sewing thread and just kind of looped it around. And I'll stick it to some adhesive that will be covered up by the stamp. And then the pop dots on the back of the stamped piece to cover up the glue. And that thread gives a little bit of motion to the very squareness of this design. So that's my finished version for this sketch, and it's pretty true to the original design. You might want to change it up a little bit, but if you want to keep it straight to the sketch, you can see that it comes together really, really quickly, and perfect for 2 4x6 photos on a related theme. Now, there's another interpretation of this sketch on my blog that you can check out at www.shimelle.com. I thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see what you make with this sketch.